Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for your support. As you know, this is a very special time of the year, not only because it's just Valentine's, which is supposed to be to honor our loved ones, friends, relatives, remembering those who are no longer with us, because the love is forever, and also the masters of wisdom, because and everybody that had contributed to the theosophical movement. I would like to say that I'm very honored that I have this opportunity. There is no religion higher than truth, HPV, right? That was one of her best quotes, and she has so many. And obviously this symbol represents a lot. We don't have to say anything. Happy Valentine's talk in honor of the masters, as I mentioned before. The Why Adepts is not always at first of powerful intellect. In fact, HPV had knowing adepts whose intellectual powers were originally below the average. It is the adept purity, his equal love to all, his working with nature, with karma, with his inner God, that give him power. And this is a quote from HPV. Oh, I see. Teachings, esoteric teachings. Before I delve into this journey that we're going to take to the Gita and all this amazing information, I would like to mention briefly the Bhavani Shankar, who was born in 1884 in India, also known as Bhavani Shankar Ganesh Mulapurkar, also known as Bhavani Rao, and his pen name was BM. Was an early associate of the founders of the Theosophical Society, close friend of HPV and Damopar. And in India, he was one of the students or Chela of one of the masters of HPV. He was a close friend of Wadia and retained a lifelong interest in theosophy until his death. And as I mentioned before, he was Chela, one of the masters of wisdom. There we have a beautiful picture that I got from the Theosophical Society Theosophy Wiki. Damodar, as you see on the right, he was also a very advanced Chela. He also worked a lot with HPV. And then you see on the lower at the bottom, Bhavani Shankar. And of course, you can see where HPV is sitting. So they were very close, the three. They worked together a lot. The Gita, which is the subject today, is based on the Mahabharata, an ancient Sanskrit epic poem that tells the story of the kingdom of Kurus. It's based on a real war that took place in the 13th or 14th century BC between the Kuru and the Panchala tribes of the Indian subcontinent. It is regarded as both a historical account of Hinduism's birth and a code of ethics for the faithful. We're going to be hearing this word Bhagavad throughout the whole talk, so I give you some definitions. Glorious, revered, divine, hence gracious Lord Patron, use of gods, demigods, and highly revered beings as Gautama, Buddha, Krishna, and Vishnu. Now, before we go into this subject, we're going to have beautiful quotes on the Gita by Nobel Prize winners, which are people who we admire greatly. You might maybe know about it, or you might not know, but other than Gandhi, there were other scientists, writers, poets that read the Gita, and it was their Bible. And now Philip Darberville will be reading about Gandhi. Go ahead, Philip.
Quote by Mohandas K. Gandhi. When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad-Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meaning from it every day. Exercise us.
Thank you so much. I would like to add that probably some of you already know, but in case those who does not know, that when Gandhi was in the second year of law in England, he came across some brother theosophists, and they invited him to this daily Gita class they had. And he went, and they asked him to do, to translate some of the Sanskrit. And he said he was very embarrassed because he didn't know how to read Sanskrit at the time. So they decided to continue with the English version of it. But from that day on, his life changed. After that, he read the Secret Doctrine, and then eventually later on met HPB, and apparently she helped him toward his path. Now Keith will read about Waldo Emerson and Thoreau.
Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us." And his colleague and friend, Henry David Thoreau, wrote similarly, "In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogony of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial."
Thank you so much, both of you. That was lovely. There are other great writers and even scientists that also spoke about, I read about the Gita. And the next one is Diana Martin with Einstein.
This is what Einstein said: "I have made the Bhagavad Gita as the source of my inspiration and guide for the purpose of scientific investigation and formation of my theories."
Thank you so much. Everybody did a great job, and I'm very grateful. I would like to add that Einstein have a great sense of humor. He didn't brush his hair most of the time. And he makes a lot of fun of many things. One of the things that really struck me is that he said that when we lose our humanity over technology, we will have a generation of idiots. And the truth is, all these technologies, distractions, doesn't let us to develop. And there was a very important Tibet, highly thought of, almost like a more than Rinpoche. I don't remember the name exactly. He usually wear a mask, like a fearful mask of tigers and things like that. And he was in the Himalayas, and he have a prophecy, and he said that he will come back, and he said that it will be a time in which the young people will be distracted and won't be able to develop the Atma Buddhi. So that was a prediction done very, very long time ago. And I thought of what Einstein also said. Now, this is a picture of B.P. Wadia. And he said in the occult life of him, the Bhagavad Gita is the book he, Shankar, which is the subject today, had mastered through long years of study and meditation, but further having lived according to its tenets more successfully than is general possible. His thought breathed a peculiar fragrance.
Beautiful.
9 stages of devotion. We're going to begin with, this is the different stages that we go through when we enter in that path. And here, let us dwell on the Nava Vida Bhakti. This Nava Vida Bhakti is not the 9 ways of devotion. It's sufficient in itself, but the 9 stages of the devotee. The qualifications for you to be the recipient of this supreme, it have to be earned. I know there is a line there that is covering the rest of the page. You have to be a friend of Bhagavan, which also means gracious Lord. Control of the animal natures and emotion, passion, desires. Devotion to Bhagavan begins with the man acquires the control of his senses and mind by following the Pavriti Marga according to the injunctions of Shastras and fired by the desire of knowing the truth. He studied deeply the scripture, where there is the soul hungers, come devotion. So we have to get rid of that. The first stage is called Saravana, because the soul is now eager to hear Bhagavan, and in listening to his glory, it rejoices. The second stage, Kirtana, is reached when, filled with the joy, it begins to participate in it with kindred souls. For out of the fullness of the devotee's heart, his mouth speaketh. It's almost like we do in here. We are joined with kindred souls to help us in the path of eventually we will get there. So that's the second stage. So we have a long way to go. The third stage is called Maranam, brooding, which is thoughtful, when the mind always loves to dwell upon Bhagavan. The fourth stage, Padasevana, when his love grows deeper and not satisfied with merely brooding on the Lord. He seeks to feel his solidarity with him and clings to his blessed feet, from which flow peace and bliss. Here, the Bhakta feel the first thrills of the divine life, and with it grows his thirst for losing himself in that life. It's almost like a sublime state. The fifth stage of Arcana is reached when, in the deep meditation of Bhagavan, he forgets himself, and he continues in this stage. And when Bhagavan is becoming enthroned in his heart more and more fully, then the sixth stage comes. See, each stage follows the other. The sixth stage of Vandanam, where he feels the presence of the Lord everywhere and in everything, and like Arjuna begins to prostrate before all things, both animate and inanimate, and when the divine life is felt everywhere. This reminds me of what I read about another wonderful, also Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mother Teresa. She said that when she was healing the people had the leprous people, she said that she didn't use, obviously didn't use gloves or anything. And she said when she was healing them, she just saw their cries within. And I think in this stage, that's how you see people. You see the shining, beautiful being that we are, because we are heavenly man being manas, heavenly man in an animal form. And we have to control that animal form and balance it so that we don't have to be taking either way. We have to be balanced. We talk about that later on. And finally, we're going closer the seventh stage of Dasya naturally follows, in which whatever the Bhakta does, he does it as a servant of Bhagavan, keeping him always at the supreme goal of his life. The distinct and the dual sense imply in this stage of servant and master in course of times wears off, and the eighth stage comes in of Takyata, or friendship. It's reached when the oneness of the devotee with Bhagavan predominates. There is not still the complete unity, the true oneness which is reached. Then we come to the ninth stage of Atma Nivedana, when the Bhakta disappears and Bhagavan becomes all in all. This is the union. The hungry man loseth sight of every other object but the gratification of his appetite. And when he's become acquainted with the Supreme, he loses all taste for objects of whatever kind. Bhagavad Gita. Selfless service. This is the road to this path of devotion, or the ninth stage of devotion. You have the right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruit of actions. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activity, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Arjuna said, destroy is delusion, and I have gained recognition through thy grace, O Achyuta. I am firm with doubts gone, and I will absolutely and unconditionally, I will do thy word. It is the final surrender of the devotee's self to Bhagavan, absolutely and unconditionally. Thus devotion, the potent power that leads to and make possible the order of self-renunciation, the self-surrender, which are the only means of receiving a spiritual illumination. So resuming, I'm going to briefly touch on the 9 stages of devotion. Some of the characteristics are studying, thinking, contemplating, preaching, doing mantras, singing, writing. Then, as we discussed in all these different pages that I brought into the sharing, the stages are listening to Bhagavan, connect, the second, with the kindred souls, bliss, peace, meditation, developing discipline of meditation, then the divine life felt, then service to the master, presence of the Lord Bhagavan, the oneness, and then all in all, final union. Vivasa is the sun. Hiranyagarbha Brahma, the creator of our system. HMB created the world through the illumination derived from this yoga. Yoga, as you know, means union. Many created the human race with his help. The Lord is the creator of everything. Gita. At the time of his death, Bhavani Shankar asked D.P. Wadia to come and visit him. He apparently delayed the event until his arrival. They have a private talk after which he expired. The date was of the full moon of the month of Ayatha, the 4th of July, 1936. Bhavani Shankar was 77 years old and active to the last, and he was ever ready to help and instruct his fellows. They're called Life of Wadia. BM, another his pen name, as I mentioned before. what you said, that he was an old man living in his old method, you know, probably without electricity and who knows what else. He did not join the modern things of society because he was obviously a Shela and high Shela probably. Fortunate in having secured a few reports of his stuff, they were found by his, you know, intimate friends. So they even rescue some of his talks. In fact, I think it was Blavatsky Lodge said that they were over 13, something like that, that they rescue, and they rescue from the Chile ULT. They said thanks to them, they have those some of, I imagine they recorded and somebody transcribed it or something like that. But thanks to that. And I just want to mention that he did a talk. It was called the Doctrine of Bhagavad-Gita. And from there, articles came, and it was like the edited version of Raghavan Iyer in the tenets, 9 stages of devotion. And then in the Jewel of the Lotus, and was also edited by Raghavan, and it have a little different version than the one that we discuss here, although I kind of took from both. And the photos is from Wiki and the Theosophical Society. And then, as I mentioned, Blavatsky Lodge. So that was my sources. Always the Secret Doctrine too, and others. Now, Monica is going to close this presentation with this quote.
Thank you, Miluka.
You're welcome.
Real theosophy is altruism. This is the new humanity, and we cannot repeat it too often. Madame Blavatsky wrote, "It is brotherly love, mutual help, unswerving devotion to truth. If once men do but realize that in these alone can true happiness be found, and never in wealth, possessions, or any selfish gratification, then the dark clouds will roll away and a new humanity will be born upon the earth. Then the golden age will be there indeed."
Thank you, lovely.
Thank you.
And with this, I conclude.
Special
There we
thanks,
There we are.
Miluka. I'm so glad that you and Truth recorded it. It's just a wealth of information, beautifully presented, beautifully spoken by all of you. And thanks so much, humbly. Thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, thank you all of the participants. And like I say, it's good that we are supporting one another. I think it's very important that we do that because there are not that many of us out there. So we have to keep the flame burning. So at this point, if anybody have any comments or question, I'd be happy to address it.
Thank you, first of all, so much, Miluka. This was a gorgeous presentation, just lovely.
Think of, well, the Gita is the study of adepts and so forth. And we think of adepts as being, I don't know, powerful people for some reason or whatever. And in reality, if you think about the several chelas that we've kind of heard of, the Damodar and Bhavani Shankar, that were privileged. I mean, who are we to hear about who's a chela or not? But for some reason, we got to get a little glimpse about a couple of people. No doubt there were many more. But, and then Judge was said to have been a chela, but he's kind of mysterious. He's a teacher and a chela at the same time, for sure. And then think about it, and HPB herself. In other words, NBP Wadi, you could say, but these are people of incredible devotion. And we think of HPB as being the most powerful intellect that ever walked, right? Walked the earth, probably, possibly. Some people think of her that way. But think of the devotion, just the sheer bhakti in that heart. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Would you already have?
Yeah, certainly. You know, when Pythagoras formed the system of the universities or fraternities, all that had nothing to do with intellect. We change it. We make everything material, physical, and for profit, you know? And even the Dalai Lama one time was saying, brain, if it doesn't work with the heart, doesn't work. You have to have both working together. And he said that he also, it's funny because he said, you know, I don't understand in America why people have so many titles before their name, you know. And I really think we have to start looking at the inner soul of that person, not because they're the queen or the king or whatever, but more about, you know, we are blinded. The intellectuality is an obstacle if we don't use the heart and the compassion. And I think the buddhi, that's what we have to start working more when we do things. And when we do that, I think since it started unveiling, I read something recently in the Secret Doctrine, you know, that actually we go into this duality. We are a duality, and we have to understand that it's nothing is evil, nothing is good or bad, it's all relative. But we need the duality. This whole solar system, a whole universe is a duality. One cannot exist without the other. Now, the thing is, when we identify with only the shadow, which is also considered some sort of veil, which I thought was interesting, she used that word, it's because we have out of balance. Now, if we learn to live with the duality, become friends with it, and decided just like Arjuna did. He was the charioteer, but who was running the act? It was the horses. The animal nature is our horses that get out of control, you know? But if we are in tune and center, we then can put the brakes to the animal nature, control our mind, control our emotion. That's what brings us out of balance. But when you're at peace, you are in control. It's not the soul dragging the body or the body dragging the soul. You are in total control. So we have to learn how to balance that, because it's not that it's going to disappear. Now we are angel, we are holy, and yeah, we are all light. No, we need that to differentiate one from the other. So the minute that we try to balance it and we got control of the animal nature, you are in command. The heavenly man is now in command, or woman, if you want to put it that way. Then you don't have this struggle, because the real battlefield is inside us, and it manifests outwardly. Why do you think we have? It's always been war, even in heaven, when there is a discrepancy between matter and spirit. It didn't happen before the matter get into the picture. So all the wars, the anger of the politics and all that, it's because they're having a battlefield inside, and it reflects out. And then we end up being ruled by ignorant, by angry people. And oh, that's one of the things that that prophet that I was talking about earlier, he decided, he said that about the technology. Also, he said that we in the future will be ruled by anger people, angry leaders. And you see the effect now. Any other question or comments?
Miluka.
Hi.
Hi, this is Shobha. I loved your presentation. Very interesting.
Thank you.
But Michelle had something to say. Michelle said that you had 18 people present. So, which is 18 is a very significant number for the number of chapters in the Bhagavad-Gita. And I added that 9 stages of devotion, 9 multiplied by 2. So it's very fascinating how these numbers keep coming back. But
wow. Yeah, just reading it now. Thank you so much, Michelle. Wow, that's interesting.
Thank you so much. I really loved your presentation. You did this
You're very
section
welcome.
justice.
Actually, don't thank me. Thank the master, the books. Without them, we are nothing. So thank you, Theosophical Movement, the masters. And like I said, I did it with a lot of great love, thinking of them, the gratitude that we owe them, and not often it's being remembered. And when I get a chance to celebrate, I celebrate love and beauty. And by the way, happy new lunar new year of the tiger, which is interesting, and it falls right in Valentine's time too.
Thank you.
So
You're very welcome.
one thought, if I may, it inspired all the sharing beautifully, Miluka and everyone. I remember HPB pointing out that the vibratory resonance present, that resonance is never lost from the imprint of the words that we take up later and study. So when we meditate on the Gita or any book, or how many times you pick up the secret doctrine and you may not understand what you're reading, and you read it and you think, well, this is meaningless, and you reread it, and then the 180th time, 10 years later, you go, aha, something. But the resonation of these truths reverberate on every level of our being. So we're conscious of maybe just a portion of it. And yet the awakening of the soul within, and that universal oneness that you're talking about in these stages, leading us and opening us up within ourselves, that's always going on. That's always going on as long as we put the effort in and are inspired. And we do that, you're inspiring us all through sharing. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you too. Well said, what you said, and it is really wonderful. What they say, one candle, light the other candle. That's what we're doing when we get together with the same heart and thinking and in harmony. Work together as a team, as a group. That's what happened. You kind of continue to kindle, I say, that expression of the fire within, and. I know there's rough times, but if we are present, like Lao Tse used to say, if you think of the past, you be depressed. If you think of the future, you be very anxious. But if you think of the present, you be at peace. And maybe if we can think of that, because sometimes, and also we are not our body, we are our higher self. Because I came across people that things happen to them. And I just said, just think of this. The body is only a vessel, a vehicle for the manifestation of your consciousness and your spirit. But if you think of just like a dress, or being like an actor performing in the stage of life, and this time you play this role, and then you get rid of the costume, and then you go off to the next role. That's what we do in life. Actually, that's what it is. If we don't attach to that, the suffering of the bodies and what happened to us, trauma and all that, and we just think that nothing can touch my higher self, people might be able to hurt us. But if we think that way, then just don't look at, we are not our body, and then I think we will feel better, and then we forgive and forget, because we've been here so many times, but we're still repeating the lesson. So how do we get out of the circle of reincarnation? How? Anybody have any thoughts?
One concept that keeps coming through my mind as you were giving your presentation was this idea of joy. And when I think about the battle, the people, struggling with this deviation from that harmony, that central spot, that creates the disparity, that creates the torrent. And whenever, no matter what kind of a bad day or bad week I might be having, it seems like, and I'm sure everybody can attest to this, when I get back into the doctrine or these teachings, it's like my heart becomes happy. It's like, oh, good, we're getting back to this happy place. And that's what I think about when we were going through those 9 stages, and there was this increasing awareness of this connection between the student and the teacher, or the parent and the child, and getting alignment. That's getting this child in alignment with its parent. When it's in that spot, and when it's back into these, marinating itself back into these teachings, it feels natural, as opposed to feeling unnatural. And I was just wondering if you have any comment on that, Miluka, or anyone else. Yeah.
Anybody would like to answer or have comments?
Well, I just have one little comment, and that is, I think that most people expect and receive their greatest joy in many ways from the work that they do, especially if they get an opportunity to do it as often and in the way that they like. And coming to Theosophy to find that there is an even greater joy is quite a mind blower. And so I just wanted to express that. It's happiness on a whole other level. And then lo and behold, we're taught that we have to even become detached from that. So there is a buoyancy that is added to a person's life when we take up these studies, that just by the very fact that we involve ourselves or seek these ideas out creates a whole new vision of the work that you do in the world and the way we interact with people. So part of the work of practicing detachment has already begun. And that to me is a form of amazing grace.
Mm.
You both make beautiful comments, and I agree with both comments, Desiree and Monica. And if we, continue to think that way and having that joy, I think nothing will, like before, when I had lost relatives, when I was Catholic and Christian and all the religions that I went through to get here, had people die, and I would just be so sad and devastated, blah, blah. Now, when somebody die, I just understand it. And I understand now why Japanese cry when the child is born, because it's coming to the world of suffering and death. Wow. And then I can see why they do a party. They celebrate when the person leaves the body, because they say, finally free from suffering. And I start, not that I throw a party, but at least to understand that we are not our body. We're visitors in this planet. The earth doesn't belong to us, although we mistreat it and do all kinds of things to damage it. We belong to the earth, at least the animal nature. But then I understood that the way out is that the connection that the boss, your higher self will release you. If you follow that path, you will get out of the circle of karma, suffering, and all that. I mean, you come back to help others, because there is no selfishness when it comes to this. Of course, you achieve all these degrees and you become now a master. And then what do? They have the choice, right? Go to Nirvana and be there until the next Magvantara and be there in a blissful state. But then most of them, they realize that all the learning, all they did is to help the one that were below them, lift the hand and pull them up. And that's what they are among us. That's why we have a Buddha, Buddha and Krishna and all these many great beings that the history talks about. That's what we have the Dalai Lama and people like Mother Teresa. You know, I don't know what kind of levels they are but I know that they are there. They're here serving humanity, and service to humanity and devotion, it seems to work together. And also use your brain with your heart, then you won't get in trouble.
Beautiful. Thank you very, very much.